Welcome to Wander Stories, a podcast bringing you stories from destinations around the world or across the street. This is your host, Susan Lanier Graham, publisher of the award-winning online travel magazine, WanderWithWonder.com. In Wander Stories, we go behind the scenes to share some of the wow moments we discover as we travel. My husband Bill and I sometimes find the best stories as we travel across the U.S. in our fifth-wheel trailer. Other times, we might discover stories as we jet off to other locales. But no matter the source or where we go, we love bringing you Wander Stories to help inspire your own travels. So pull up a chair, grab a glass of bubbles or your favorite beverage, and enjoy this episode of Wander Stories. Welcome back to Wander Stories. This week we have something a little special. My husband Bill is joining me as we discuss memorable and often unexpected meals we've enjoyed during our travels. Welcome to Wander Stories, Bill.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Okay, but before we begin talking about food, we'll start with our usual, where in the world is Susan? Today, we're in Oklahoma City. It's the capital of Oklahoma and has a combined metropolitan population of about 1.5 million people. Oklahoma City is known for a couple of things: livestock and oil. The city is in the middle of an oil field, and as you drive around the state capitol, you'll even see oil pumps at work there. The city was founded in April 1889, and as the result of a land run, 10,000 settlers homesteaded in the new development. Now, as I mentioned, livestock is also a huge part of Oklahoma City culture. Around the turn of the 20th century, the city developed major stockyards, taking business away from Kansas City and Omaha. And then everything changed when oil was discovered in 1928. And today, Oklahoma City remains a major player in the oil and gas industry. The city was also a major stop on Route 66. And as the interstate highway system developed, Oklahoma City remained important because interstates 35, 40, and 44 converge here. One of the most tragic moments in Oklahoma City's history happened 29 years ago, almost to the day when we're recording this. On April 19, 1995, Timothy McVeigh detonated a bomb in front of the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building. On that tragic day, 168 people died, many of them children, and dozens more were injured and spent their lives trying to recover from the injuries. Bill and I spent a day exploring the Oklahoma City National Memorial and Museum, which will be in a future episode. It is a remarkable museum and does a phenomenal job of showing how an ordinary day can become tragic in a split second. I will add the link to today's show notes, and I recommend if you get to Oklahoma City, go visit the memorial and the gardens surrounding it. Now, on to today's episode of Wander Stories about memorable and often unexpected meals when you travel. So Bill and I love good food, and we started out going out to eat in the very earliest days of our relationship, many decades ago now. My favorite spot was Pine Grove Restaurant, home of the best prime rib ever, in Steamboat Springs, Colorado.
And don't forget the house potatoes.
Oh, yes, those house potatoes.
They were like mashed potatoes, deep fried and covered with a cheese sauce. They were amazing.
They were so good. I have tried so many times over the years to duplicate those, and they just never taste the same. We went out that summer after Bill graduated from high school. We went out to Pine Grove so often that I think we probably used up every bit of money that were supposed to save for college.
Yeah, my mother was not happy.
Yeah, it made a good first impression on her, didn't I? So what about other places in Steamboat? Did you have other favorites?
Well, Mazzola's Pizza was the favorite hangout.
Yes.
For high school students then.
Yes.
And there's the crepe shop across the street from the courthouse was really good.
Oh, ham and cheese crepes. Those were really good. I remember a couple of times last year of high school, we would sneak out for lunch out of school and go have ham and cheese crepes. That was good. So after we were married and living in Denver, one of my favorite treats was driving up to Morrison to go to the fort. This family owned restaurant specializes in wild game, elk, venison, bison. I still love that restaurant. I think the last time we were there was maybe 5 or 6 years ago. After Bill joined the Air Force and moved to Germany, we started playing, I don't know, a game of sorts as we explored Germany. So I could speak and read German, but Bill wasn't always as familiar with the menus as I was. So he would order whatever he didn't recognize. How did that go for you, Bill?
It usually worked out really well. I got to try some amazing things. The part that stands out as an exception was when I got the fried eggs and pickled eels.
Oh, your favorite foods, right? Bill hates fried eggs and evidently hates pickled eel too. So, yeah, we had some great foods traveling around Europe. And then after we returned to the US, we continued our love of food and even passed that on to our son. Just before he turned 7, we drove across the country researching one of my books. And our son Patrick fell in love with food in New Orleans.
Yeah, he ate the whole time we were there. He ate jambalaya and gumbo and red beans and rice and beignets and anything he could get his hands on.
Yeah, since then he said that it was that trip that created his love for food. And he went on and got a degree in culinary arts from Scottsdale Culinary Institute and worked in fine dining for many years. We've also watched as our grandkids shared that love of food. I remember one time, Bill, you took Nathan for a treat. I think you had intended to go out for ice cream, but I think he had something different in mind.
Yeah, Nathan was probably 5 at the time, and he wanted sushi. He didn't want ice cream. He just wanted sushi. But we had other kids to satisfy, so we didn't do sushi. We went to the ice cream parlor.
Oh, so my favorite food story about the grandkids was when we were dining at Fairmont Scottsdale Princess in Arizona. And it was all of us. It was our son Patrick, our daughter-in-law Cammie, and all the kids. And our youngest granddaughter, Morgan, was 5 at the time. And she ordered dinner, and she tells the waitress, "I'll have the mac and cheese, but please have chef add some paprika to it to give it a smoky taste."
The chef had to come out to see who this kid was, who's sending instructions to the chef.
Yes. Oh, yeah, she still really loves going out to eat. All the kids do. Morgan loves a good steak. We took her to Steak 44 for dinner just before they moved out of Arizona. She was kind of curious about they offered variety of butters with your steak, and she chose the truffle butter. And afterwards she told me no steak would ever be as good without truffle butter. There have been some amazing wow moments while we were dining, both together and alone. And while some were over the top, others were in the most unexpected places. But I want to talk about a few of those over-the-top dining experiences.
Yeah, my favorite place ever was Spago in Las Vegas. We had an amazing meal there.
Yeah.
We did the tasting menu. I think it was 12 courses.
I think so.
And the chef had flown to Los Angeles that morning to go to the farmer's market and get seafood at the docks. And so he had the freshest ingredients. And he made these 12 courses out of what he had on hand. None of them were on the menu, I don't think.
No.
And then with each course, he would come and sit with us and explain what it was and how he prepared it. And it was a fabulous meal. It has stuck in my mind for years.
That's great. My favorite was the ricotta gnocchi that he made.
Yes, they were like little pillows of.
Yes, so good. So good. Oh, now, speaking of chefs going to the market and getting fresh food, that wasn't the only time that happened to us. Do you remember that meal that we had in Mexico? We were there on a press trip, and I was supposed to write about these condos that were for sale.
Yeah, they were. It wasn't really anything. There was a restaurant on the property with the condos, and they were trying to sell us timeshares.
Right.
And we had gone out on a fishing boat that day, and they fed us the whole day. And there were 6 or 8 of us in the group that was there that weekend. And we when we got off the boat and it was time for dinner, we were all stuffed, and all of us said that we couldn't eat dinner. And the waiter says, "Oh, the chef is going to be so disappointed because he went to the dock and got fresh lobster off the boat."
Yep.
So we all felt bad and went ahead and had the lobster. And then we ended up with 6 or 8 courses at that meal too.
Yeah.
I remember that there was some kind of sashimi.
Sashimi. It was scallop sashimi
Yes.
and ceviche. They made the best ceviche I have ever had. Was there at that little restaurant. It was fun. Now, one of my favorite dining experiences was, which unfortunately you were not with me, Bill. I ate at Joel Robuchon's restaurant in Monaco. I was there with my sister, and they seated us at the chef's table in the kitchen. It was really special that night because Chef Robuchon was actually in the restaurant, and he personally prepared his signature mashed potatoes for us. Now, if you ever see these on a menu, they'll say Robuchon style mashed potatoes. You have to try them. They are literally the best mashed potatoes ever.
I think they're mostly butter and cream.
Yeah. I think probably more butter and cream than potatoes, but it's so good.
Yeah, then some couple years later, I guess, we were in a different restaurant, and the chef was talking to us and bragged that he made Robuchon potatoes. And then Susan told him that she had potatoes who were prepared by Joel Robuchon. And then the chef was all nervous that his potatoes wouldn't measure up to somebody who actually had them.
They were pretty good. They were pretty good. So, another time that I wasn't there, but it's one of my favorite stories you tell, Bill, is about your dining experience in Rome.
Yes, I had a good time in Rome. I was only there for one night because I had a layover to flight out the next morning. And so I was walking around, taking in the sights. And up this alley, I found a place that was an Irish pub. And it was run by 2 Japanese guys. And their special that night was Hungarian goulash. So it was really an interesting mashup. And there was the seating was at these tables in the alley. There was very little seating inside. And so I sat there and had my dinner. And while I was there, this tour guide came by with a group of Chinese tourists. And he tells them, "This is an authentic Irish pub." And so like 20 tourists lined up to take pictures of the authentic Irish pub.
So the Chinese tourists speaking English with their Italian tour guide stopped at the authentic Irish pub in Rome run by 2 Japanese men serving Hungarian goulash.
Yes. It was a multicultural experience.
All in one seating.
There was also the Nigerian peddler that kept coming by to get me to buy jewelry.
Oh, so sometimes our dining experiences are all about the people we meet. You had an interesting encounter. I think it was in Lisbon with 2 sisters.
Yeah, I arrived in Lisbon the day before you did because we were we were meeting up to do a cruise.
Oh, that's right.
And so I walked into this restaurant off the street, and it was packed. It was so busy. And so, like in a lot of restaurants in Europe, they seated me at a table with other people. You don't get your own table necessarily. And so I sat with these two sisters from Angola in this pub in Lisbon. And one of them lived in New York City, and lived in London. And ever so often they meet up for a sister's getaway. And they met in Lisbon because, being from Angola, which was a Portuguese colony, they both spoke Portuguese. And fortunately for me, they both spoke English as well.
Right.
And so I sat at the table with them, the three of us, and we ordered a bunch of food and shared each other's plates and talked about where they were from and what they did and how they grew up. And it was
fun.
a fabulous experience.
That's great. I liked the night that we spent, our last night in Venice. We went to one of the hundreds of little sidewalk cafes that's on some canal somewhere in the heart of Venice. And we were seated at the restaurant. I don't remember a lot about it. It was good food, nothing spectacular. Had a good bottle of wine. And the couple next to us was from England. And of course, we were seated,
Yeah, the tables are only like 6 inches apart, so it's almost like sitting at the same table anyway.
And we chatted with them.
Yeah, we
for
struck
a
up
long
a
time.
conversation with them. It was just before Brexit passed. And so a lot of the discussion was about Brexit.
Right.
And I remember they were in favor of Brexit because the European Union had a rule that you weren't allowed to sell misshapen bananas. And I asked them, so you really want to exit the European Union so that you can buy a misshapen banana?
I'm sure right after Brexit, they went out and bought misshapen bananas. But that was fun.
But at least they could.
Right? They could. Oh, and the limoncello after dinner.
Yes, that definitely lubricated
The conversation.
Conversation.
They had homemade limoncello, if I recall.
Yes, and the restaurant served it as an aperitif after the meal.
Yeah.
We went through many bottles of limoncello.
Like I said, I think we sat there for about 4 hours. It was very late when we got back to the hotel. That was fun. Another really fun food memory is we stayed in this beautiful medieval town in the south of France called Castillon-de-Garde. Now, this is a tiny town. You park at the bottom of the hill, and you have to meander up cobblestone streets into town. And we found a beautiful hotel there, Le Vue Castillon. That's still one of my favorite trips of all time.
Yeah, from the village on top of this hill, you look across the valley at Pont de Garde, which is a Roman aqueduct that's multi-tiers, and it's an amazing sight in itself. And so you can sit in the park with the cobblestone streets, and the old men play bocce ball.
Uh-huh. It was very cool. But the restaurants were interesting there.
Yeah, when we checked into the hotel, the clerk told us there are 3 restaurants in town.
And they're not all open at the same time. They alternate days.
Yeah, so they don't steal business from each other. So there's modern French, there's traditional French, and there's more traditional French.
Yeah, the modern was in the hotel. That was in Le Vue Castillon. And the chef is actually a Michelin-starred chef. He hasn't gotten a Michelin star for that restaurant, but he did at a previous restaurant. And it was very good food.
And when we got to the more traditional restaurant, They didn't speak any English at all, and our French is terrible.
Yeah, to say the least.
So, but they were very welcoming, and we had a really good time trying to mime what we wanted to eat and what they had available. And one of the things we had that night was rabbit.
At least we assume it was rabbit. It was
Yeah,
either rabbit or kangaroo.
Yeah, the owner was miming the hopping with her fingers, so it was something that hops.
Yeah, so we assumed it was rabbit. It was very good.
Yeah, that
It
was the
fun.
best restaurant in town, but better than the.
Yeah, I don't know about that. We do have differing tastes sometimes in food, so it gives us a chance to explore all different kinds. Another really fun find overseas was Faust Wine Bar in Budapest. We found it while we were exploring on the Buda side of the Danube.
Yeah, we were wandering through the castle
Yeah.
on top of the hill, and we went down this long flight of stairs, ended on this patio that was above. There's a cliff that drops all the way down to the river. And at the back of this patio was an actual cave.
With the door. Had a little sign on it.
Yes.
Said Faust.
And so we thought, oh, that'd be fun to go in. And we go in, and they were totally booked. And we found out later that they are always totally booked. You have to get reservations months ahead. But as we got there, the waiter says, oh, well, we've had a cancellation. So there's an empty table. Come right in and we'll get you seated.
It was fun. I think there are only 4 tables in the whole place. 4 or 5 tables.
Yeah, it's like 12 seats.
Yeah, it's tiny. And we had Hungarian wine and cheese and fruits and nuts and tapenade and bread. It was a lovely evening. And I've sent people there since then, but they never make reservations far enough ahead. So if you're going to Budapest, it is actually straight up the hill from where the boats all dock. And I will drop a link in today's show notes. Book a wine tasting at Faust. It's fabulous. And now, much more, I guess, casual, is we've also really enjoyed sampling food in Mexico over the years.
Yeah, so every seaside town in Mexico has a malecon, and someday I'll look up what that means. But the malecon is a street that runs along the beach, and so there's lots of tiny seafood places. Many of them have dirt floors, cook on a wood fire with a sheet of iron on top, and we like to go there and have fish tacos.
Yeah. And a Coke in a bottle.
Yes.
Oh, but there's the other place with the queso.
Yeah, in San Felipe is the beans and rice,
Yeah.
and they serve queso fundido, and so you get this creamy cheese in a cast iron pot.
Ooh, with fresh tortillas.
Yes.
Oh, so good. Yeah, that's definitely those are some good food memories. But you don't have to go overseas or someplace exotic to get really good food. Thinking about some of the best foods I've had here in the U.S., what about those duck fat fries in Scottsdale?
Yeah, at Bourbon Steak.
Also at the Fairmont.
Yeah, Bourbon Steak is a very expensive steakhouse, but if you go in the bar instead of being seated in the restaurant, you can get hamburger and duck fat fries.
Yeah, that was amazing.
And
I don't know if they still serve the duck fat fries.
And the fries were served with different dipping sauces.
Yep. 3 different dipping sauces. We may have had burgers and duck fat fries more than once. That was good. That was good. So one of my all-time favorite meals is the cracklin pollo at Hugo's Invitados in Las Colinas, Texas. Now this is an area of Irving, about 15 minutes from DFW Airport. The restaurant is 100% gluten-free, and I have never tasted such flavor in a chicken. So if you have time and you're in DFW, you have a long layover, get an Uber, drive the 15 minutes to Hugo's, and order the cracklin pollo. And despite that's a ridiculous name. It is the most amazing chicken ever. So it's served with a lemongrass rice and this cucumber salad that is to die for. And then I always finish it off with a cocktail called the dulce de leche. Now it has nothing to do with the dulce de leche cake, but this is a double shot of espresso with tuaca, coffee liqueur, organic agave nectar, and vanilla almond milk. Okay, now I really need to go back to the FW and go to Hugo's. I want crackling pollo.
Getting hungry talking about all this food?
Yes. So, during the past 15 months that we've been living in our fifth wheel trailer and exploring the U.S., we've discovered some pretty incredible food. I enjoyed the buffalo medallions I had at Lone Buffalo in Du Bois, Wyoming. Now, Du Bois is a fun little town.
Yeah, Du Bois is what you would picture as a Western town. It looks like in the Westerns.
Yeah, something out of a movie set.
With board sidewalks and...
Yeah, places to tie your horses up.
Yes. So it's pronounced Du Bois, not Dubois, because in the 1800s, there was a Governor Dubois of Wyoming, and he decided to rename the town after himself. And he didn't consult the people that lived in the town, and they were upset about it. So in kind of a protest, they pronounce it Du Bois. And it is still pronounced that way today.
Yes. And they will tell you that story.
Yes.
Oh. So then we spent some time in South Dakota. We found some good food in South Dakota. We stayed in this little tiny town called Belle Fourche. It's about 45 minutes north of Rapid City. And I didn't really expect much from the little town. It's maybe, what do they call those? A 4x4 town? 4 blocks wide and 4 blocks long. But there was Wild Magnolia Cafe there. And we went for breakfast the first time, and I had this amazing latte and a bowl of fruit and yogurt with the best homemade granola I've ever had. And I found out they get the granola handmade from the bakery around the corner. And so I bought some granola to take with me. We're going to be back up there in another few weeks, so I'll have to go buy some more granola. But the next little town over was Spearfish. It had some really good food.
Yeah, Spearfish is kind of a tourist town. It's right at the edge of the Black Hills, maybe 10 miles from Deadwood, which is a
total tourist town.
Yes, it's kind of like Disneyland version of...
Exactly.
Where Du Bois was authentic Western.
Right.
Deadwood is...
not authentic Western.
No, it's the fake Western.
So Spearfish is kind of in the middle of the two. But I think the first time we went there, we ate at Nona's Kitchen, an Italian restaurant, and they had amazing homemade pasta. But I think my favorite was Farmhouse Bistro.
Yeah, they had good food. But the thing that made that meal memorable was they have this 2-story glass wall that looks out on the river that runs through town. And while we were there was this huge thunderstorm, and it just poured rain. And over the course of maybe 45 minutes, the river started to flood. And you started to see trees come down the river, and
the tent,
somebody's tent came down the river, and oil barrels floating down the river.
Tuppers.
And the river kept rising, and outside the restaurant on the grass are picnic tables, and pretty soon the picnic tables are starting to go under.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy.
And so it was a memorable time watching the storm.
That was definitely memorable. We'll have to go back and recall the food. It was good food.
Yeah, it was good. I enjoyed it.
I don't recall that much about the food because of the massive rainstorm. So we actually just dined yesterday at a place called Hank's here in Oklahoma City. Their tagline, if it ain't Hank's, no thanks. And we had smoked turkey legs and pretty amazing barbecue.
Yeah, they specialize in smoked turkey.
Yeah.
And then they have a few other things besides. I had the pork ribs.
Yeah.
That were just amazing. They had this delicate bark on it that was full of flavor, and the bones fell out of the ribs.
Yeah, it was good.
It was very good.
But I've saved the best for last. Over the past year, well, I guess the best of the past year. There's a lot of bests, but the past year, the one that was the most unexpected, we were in Bayfield, Wisconsin, the end of May. So it was at the very beginning of the season. Not everything even opens until after Memorial Day. So the first week of June, because it's cold, it's right on Lake Superior. And we really explored this beautiful little town. It's probably one of the most idyllic towns I've ever visited.
Yeah, Bayfield is the cutest little seaside town.
Yeah.
It's a port. It's been a fishing port for
And you can,
many years.
You can take the ferry over just a few minutes to an island that has homes on it, but there are no cars on the island. The only way to get there is with the ferry. Well, you can ride over on the ferry with the cars, but there's no roads to it. That's what. So Bayfield's just really amazing. But there weren't a lot of restaurants open. So we started searching to see what else is in the area. And I discovered a restaurant called Good Time Restaurant. Good Time, Thyme, like the herb. And it was about 10 miles south of Bayfield and 2 miles north of Washburn, Wisconsin. Now, mind you, Washburn is not a city either. So Bayfield has about 600 residents. Washburn is a little bigger with 2,000 people. So I had no idea what to expect from Good Time Restaurant. The directions said, "We're the big yellow house on Highway 13. Well, it turns out it was one of the best restaurants we visited all of the entire year.
Yeah, the chef's story kind of gives you an idea of how small these towns are. His grandmother had owned the restaurant at one time, and he remembered as a little kid playing with his toys in front of the fireplace in the dining room. So he grew up there, and eventually he moved away to go to culinary school.
Yeah. He spent time in Chicago, I think he said.
Yeah, and while he was away, his family sold the restaurant. And so he spent some years working in fine dining in other places. And then he came back and bought the restaurant back. And when we were there, he had the restaurant like a week.
Yeah.
So he was just getting into his menu, and
it was so good. We ordered too much food that night because everything sounded so good. But I remember we started with these duck wontons. They had duck, bacon, sweet corn, and cream cheese inside. And they served them with a sweet soy garlic chili sauce. And then we had the quattro formaggi crostini, had 4 cheese spread, olive tapenade, caramelized onion, and balsamic. I think we both got the steak. I know I got the steak. It was a hand-cut grilled ribeye with truffle butter and this mushroom brandy green peppercorn cream.
And all of the dishes had these layers of flavor, and the longer you chewed, the more it changed, and you got all these different flavors.
Yeah.
It was very good.
It was so good. And I say it was the best place last year. It is in definitely one of the top restaurants I've ever eaten in my entire life. And which says a whole lot for this tiny little town of Washburn, Wisconsin. So how many other memorable dining experiences do we have, Bill?
Oh, there's thousands. We eat out a lot.
We do. It's our entertainment. But I think we will stop here for this time. But we would love to hear about some of your favorite dining experiences. So drop us an email or leave a comment below in the show notes. Definitely follow along with our full-time RV travels on Instagram at Wander with Wonder or on the website at wanderwithwonder.com. Last year, we explored the western U.S. in search of good weather and good wine. So this year, we're spending a lot of time here in the Midwest, and then we'll be heading to the East Coast, where we're going to be searching for the best bites across America. I'm already scoping out some James Beard Award winners and nominees, and I'm looking for unexpected great food moments. So if you have recommendations, be sure to drop us a note and check back for all of our recommendations on the best bites across America. And I hope you'll join me again, Bill, for some more chatting about our travels.
This has been fun. I hope that the audience doesn't mind me.
Of
I'm not
course
much of a
not.
public speaker.
Oh, but I hope all of you have amazing food experiences wherever your travels may take you. Be sure to check back for more great wander stories with me, and we'll talk Bill into coming back soon. Thank you. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Wander Stories. Join us next time when we share more stories from around the world or across the street. Until then, check out wanderwithwonder.com for more of my favorite travel destinations. Be sure to check today's show notes for links to give you more information on what we talked about. We love sharing our stories with you. So subscribe to Wander Stories and never miss another episode. We'd love to hear some of your wander stories as well, so be sure to share your feedback and drop some notes in the comments. Oh, and remember, share wander stories with a friend. Until next time, when we bring you more wander stories, I hope you discover some of your own wow moments wherever your travels may take you.